All right, here we go. Solving for the variable pre-assessment, chapter 2. We're going to go over one step, two step, and multi-step isolations. So all of these are going to deal with the steps that when we talk about steps are addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. And we're going to talk about their, and when I say steps, we're going to utilize the inverse of those steps. The inverse of addition is subtraction. The inverse of subtraction is addition. The inverse of multiplication is division or multiplying by the reciprocal. And the inverse of division is multiplication. So those are the only operations, also known as operations, that we're going to be dealing with. All right, let's look at the first one. Relatively simple. You have what's happening to the variable. 19 is being added to it. So in order to get rid of things being added, we do the inverse of adding 19, which is subtracting 19. So we will subtract 19 from both sides, and we get 6 equals x. The answer would be B. Again, what's happening to my variable? 18 is being added to it. What's the inverse of adding 18? Subtracting 18. These cancel. You're left with the variable isolated on the left side, and we are left with 17. Now, when we look at our variable, 6 is being subtracted from the variable. What's the inverse of subtracting 6? Adding 6. You're left with m equals 18. What's happening to my variable b? 16 is being subtracted from it. The inverse of subtracting 16 is adding 16. The negative 16 and the positive 16 cancel each other, which leaves you with b. And then we have, our signs are different. We have a negative 32 and a positive 16. So we're going to take the smaller from the larger. 16 from 32 is 16. And we're going to take the sign of the larger. We have more negatives than positives. So my answer is going to be negative 16. This is a little bit different because our variable doesn't come first. There's two things you could do. You could rewrite it with the variable coming first. Notice this is positive x and negative 2. So when we rewrite it, we have positive x and negative 2. So either way, you could leave it in this form also. I'm okay with that. That's not a bad thing. But what's happening to the variable? Well, negative 2, that's not right. There's a negative 2 that we need to get rid of. So what gets rid of a negative 2 is a positive 2. These cancel, negative 2 and positive 2 leaves you with x equals 11. If you did it over here, you can see the inverse a little bit easier when you do that. They like B's and C's. I think all of our answers have been either B or a C. All right, now this is our first multiplication and division problem. You notice that problems 1 through 5, something was adding or subtracting to the variable, and problems 6 through 10, I think, problems will be either multiplying or dividing the variable. So in this case, 14 is dividing the variable. The inverse of dividing by 14 is multiplying by 14. So you'll multiply both sides by 14, and let's do this. How can I multiply 14 times negative 9? Well, 14 times 9. Well, I don't know what 9 times 14 is off the top of my head. And instead of 14, can we do 10 times 4? 10 plus 4. Because 10 plus 4 equals 14. And now I can use the distributive property. because I do know what 9 times 10 is, and I do know what 9 times 4 is. So I get 126. And then we know that we have a negative and a positive. A negative times a positive makes a negative. So I would get negative 126 equals x. And we get that. So sometimes when we don't have a calculator or we're not provided a calculator, we can use these shortcuts like this with difficult numbers, 9 times 14. I don't necessarily know what that was, so I made it easier to do it. When you do that enough times, you can do some of this mentally also. You can break that down into 10 plus 4, 9 times 10, 9 times 4, and do it in your head. I'm not an in your head kind of guy. I'm on the piece of paper or a calculator. So number 7, n is being divided by 13. So the inverse of dividing by 13 is multiplying by 13. Anytime we 13 in the denominator, 13 in the numerator, isolates our variable. That's why we chose that inverse operation. Negative 2 times 13 is negative 26. A negative times a positive is always going to give you a negative. So we're back to B as being our solution again. Here we have negative 6 is multiplying the variable. How do we get rid of things being multiplied? The inverse is either multiplying by the reciprocal or by dividing. So we're left with x. Negative 6 over negative 6 produces 1, gives us a coefficient of 1. That's why we isolate the variable x. And negative 24 divided by negative 6 gives me positive 4. A negative divided by a negative is always a positive. So my answer is D. We go back to division. We're dividing by 13. The inverse is multiplying by 13. That leaves me with P. Here we go. 9 times 13. I don't really know what 9 times 13. I know what 9 times 10 is 90, and 9 times 3 is 27. So I get 117. And a negative times a positive gives me a negative. That's a horrible negative sign. Negative. So my answer is B again. Good Lord, so many B's. And so many 13s. What's going on here? I've seen divided by 13 before. I'm going to multiply by 13. 13 times 17. I don't know what 13 times 17 is. So what we could do is, you can do it a couple ways. You can do 13 times 10 plus 7. And 13 times 10 I know is 130. And now I have 13 times 7. Well, I don't know what 13 times 7 is, so why don't I make 13 as 10 plus 3 times 7? Oh, double distribution here. Come on, move your page up. 130, that's going to be 70. That's going to be 21. That's going to be 200. Plus 21 is 221. Is that right? 221 and positive. So that's 221 equals P. Yes, you can use a calculator. I'm just trying it out. And it's fun for me. I know. All right, here is the first two-step problem. So in this example, we cannot get rid of the things being added or subtracted first because it's in a vinculum. We have to be very cognizant, and we have to be aware that that is a vinculum, which means it's a grouping symbol. So I cannot get into that 4. I have to get rid of this 3 first, and this 3 is dividing, so I'm going to need to multiply by its inverse, or multiply by the inverse of dividing by 3 is multiplying by 3. And that leaves me with V plus 4 equals 21 minus 4 minus 4. V equals 17. Another B. That is unbelievable on how many B answers there are. I did not do this on purpose. Really important for you to look and notice those that attention to the detail. When am I going to get rid of things being added and subtracted first? When am I going to get rid of things being multiplied or divided? So that's an interesting one. So here we have a traditional two-step where there are no grouping symbols. So I'm going to get rid of what's being added and subtracted first. So the inverse of adding 3 is subtracting 3. That gives me negative 170. I have a negative 167 and a negative 3, which makes negative 170 equals negative 10n. Negative 10 is multiplying. The inverse of multiplying by negative 10 is dividing by negative 10. Two negatives make a positive. 170 divided by 10, those zeros will cancel and leaves me with 17. Also a familiar answer. Lots of 17s as answers. Here's another two-step equation. Something's being added and subtracted to the variable, and something's being multiplied by the variable. I'm going to get rid of things being added and subtracted. What do I need to do to get rid of the negative 6? I'm going to add 6 to both sides. That leaves me with 5x equals 25. I'm going to divide by 5. X equals 5. My first A answer. Again, I need to get rid of what's being added and subtracted. This 7, positive 7. Inverse of adding 7 is subtracting 7. That gives me negative 66. 6 is multiplying the variable. Inverse of multiplying by 6 is dividing by 6. A negative divided by a positive gives me a negative. And we're back to my B solutions. Can't wait to count how many B ones. All right, number 15. Again, it's in a vinculum, so I can't get rid of the things being added and subtracted first. I have to get rid of this denominator. 6 is dividing. The inverse of dividing by 6 is multiplying by 6. These cancel, denominator, numerator. And then I'm going to subtract 5. And I get n equals 1. All right, problems 16 through 20 now have distribution. So we can't get to this variable just yet, so we can't get rid of that. So there's two ways that we can do it. You see that I have option 1 and option 2. Option 1 is to distribute, and we're going to simplify it. So we're going to get rid of those parentheses by distributing that 10 times into both of the terms. We get 10 times p plus 10 times negative 10, which gives us negative 80 equals 10p minus 100. And now this is turned into a two-step equation, getting rid of things being added and subtracted first. So we get rid of that negative 100 by adding 100, negative 80 and positive 100. I have more positives than negatives. I have 100 positives and I have 80 negatives. That leaves me with 20 positives. And 10p, 10 is multiplying, so I divide by 10 and I get 2 equals p. Now option 2, remember I said I can't get into this parentheses because Chewbacca is protecting the p. So how can I get rid of this 10? Well, what is it doing to the parentheses? It's multiplying. So what's the inverse of multiplying by 10? Dividing by 10, yeah. And you get negative 8. These cancel. P minus 10. You'd add 10, and 2 equals P. Very efficient. That would be a high school way of doing this problem. Option 1 would be an 8th grade way. Option 2 would be a high school method of doing it. Again, that attention to the detail, noticing the situation and adapting and using the most efficient method in order to isolate the variable. So being able to determine and to see and be aware of the problem and how you are going to attack it in order to isolate it. So let's do option 1. We're going to distribute the 2 into the parentheses. 2 times r plus 2 times 8 equals 46. That gives me 2r plus 16 equals 46. Now it's a two-step problem. Minus 16 gives me 30 divided by 2, r equals 15. The high school way, I can't get into the parentheses, so I need to get rid of what's outside of those parentheses. I'm going to divide by 2. That leaves me with r plus 8 equals 23 minus 8 minus 8, r equals 15. Number 18, let's distribute 7 times x plus 7 times negative 7. That negative is attached to this 7, so it better stay with that 7, equals negative 105. That looks like 25. 7 times x is 7x. 7 times negative 7 is negative 49, equals negative 105. This is a two-step equation. We're going to add 49. You get 7x equals, that's going to be 9, that's 15, that's 6, and that is, that's not, yeah, 6. Did I do this right? 9, 4 from 9 is, 56. Hello, Mr. Mac. Now we're going to divide by 7, x equals 8. Do you have to do both options? No. You could choose option 1 to do it, or you can choose option 2. I'm just showing you two different ways of doing this problem. Mr. Mac made a mistake. So I came up with x equals 8. We see that we don't have an answer of x equaling 8. I have negative 16, 7, negative 8, and 6. So I know I made a mistake. I need to go back. Where do 99% of the mistakes students make in 8th grade? Dealing with negatives, yes. So I go back to my problem. I had negative 105 and positive 49, which would have given me negative 56 over 7, which would have given me x equals negative 8. So be careful of that. People make mistakes. Option 2, the high school way, let's get rid of that 7 multiplying by dividing by 7. You get x minus 7 equals negative 115. 7 goes into 10 once with 3 left over. 7 goes into 35 5 times. Plus 7, x equals negative 8. Number 19. So let's distribute. 72 equals 8 times k plus 8 times 2. 72 equals 8k plus 16. Two-step problem. Let's get rid of the addition and subtraction first. That's 56 equals 8k. Divide by 8, 7 equals k. Let's do option 2. Let's divide by 8. Remember, we're dividing because we can't get into that parenthesis. We can't get to the variable. So 72 divided by 8 is 9. The 8's cancel and leaves you with k plus 2. So you're going to subtract 2. 7 equals k. Last one with dual options. We're going to distribute. 6 equals 6 times x plus 6 times negative 6. 6 equals 6x minus 36. We're going to add 36 to both sides. We get 42 equals 6x. Divide by 6, and we get 7 equals x. Another 7. Lots of 7s. If we want to use option 2, divide by 6, you get 1 equals x minus 6, add 6, 7 equals x. Really efficient using this method. You just have to be careful of when to use it and when not to use it. All right, problems 21 through 29 has multiple steps. So this one, again, you have to be very aware of what's going on. I have constants on the left side. I have multiple variables on the same side on the right side. So I'm going to simplify first. I'm going to combine like terms on the right side. So we still are left with 4 on the left side. 4x minus 8x gives me negative 4x. Those are like terms. We're going to combine their coefficients, 4 and negative 8. Now, this is a one-step problem. Negative 4 is multiplying the variable. So we do the inverse of multiplying by negative 4, which is dividing by negative 4. We get negative 1 equals x. (22), again, we have variables on the same side. We have our constants already combined on the right side. So I'm going to simplify these because they're on the same side of the equal sign. 8x plus 3x gives me 11x. 11 is multiplying. The inverse of multiplying by 11 is dividing by 11. And 11 over 11 equals 1. So now we have variables on the same side of the equal sign. However, this time we have constants on opposite sides. So again, the first thing I'm always going to do is I'm going to simplify things on the same side. So negative 4b and negative 8b makes negative 12b. Now my variables are together on the left side, but I have constants on both sides. Since my variables are on the left side, my constants will need to go to the other side. So what's going to get rid of that positive 5? A negative 5, yeah. That leaves me with negative 12b equals 12. Positive 17 and negative 5 makes positive 12. Now I'm still isolating the variable b. Negative 12 is multiplying it. The inverse of multiplying by negative 12 is dividing by negative 12. b equals negative 1. 12 over negative 12 gives me negative 1. 12 over 12 equals 1. A positive divided by a negative is a negative. So my answer is negative 1. Now we're into the d's. We're definitely doing a lot of d's. This fourth example now has variables on different sides of the equation, so we cannot combine them. And we have constants on different sides of the equal sign, so we cannot combine them either. So I need to remember I'm always going to move variables first. So I'm going to move the variables either to the left side or to the right side. I'm going to get rid of this positive 3n and move it to the other side. What gets rid of a positive 3n? A negative 3n. These cancel. That leaves me with 3n minus 10 equals 2. And now it's a two-step equation. We're going to add 10 to both sides. 3n equals 12. We're going to divide both sides by 3. N equals 4. Okay, now, whoa, look at this problem. We've got variables, multiple variables on the left side. We got multiple variables on the right side. So variables on different sides, but we can combine the ones that are on the same side. So we can combine those two because they're both on the left side, and we can combine both of these because they're both on the right side. Negative 6m and positive m leaves me with negative 5m. Negative m and negative 4m leaves me with negative 5m. Students will make a mistake here. They will divide by negative 5. That is wrong. We need to move the variables to the same side. Move the variables first, and combine on the same side, or move to the same side. Let's and move to the same side. That's horrible handwriting right there. So let's get rid of the one on the right, -5. What's going to get rid of a -5n? A positive 5m. What do you get on the left side? 0. What are you left with on the right side? 0. What do we notice? The variables canceled. When the variables cancel, you check and see whether you get a true or false statement. Does 0 equal 0? That is a true statement. If it's true, then my solution is going to be all real numbers. And I need to see both of those pieces. I need to see the numeric statement. I need to see whether it's true or false. And then I need to know what your answer is. And your answer in this case is all real numbers. Okay, we again have variables on both sides and constants on both sides. We're going to move the variables first. I'm going to get rid of the negative or the positive 3m by subtracting 3m. These cancel. You're left with 7 plus 10m equals 7. Now I have a two-step. I have my variables on the left side and I have constants on the left and right. So I got to move the constants. Since my variables are on the left, I'm going to move the constants to the right side. I got to get rid of this constant on the left side, so I'm going to get rid of it by subtracting 7. That leaves me with 10m equals 0. We did not cancel the variables. We still have variables. So what's happening to the variable? It's being multiplied by 10. We're going to divide by 10, and that leaves me with m equals 0. Very important to understand that 0 over 8 equals 0, 0 over -4 equals 0, 0 over 1 million equals 0. However, when you get 4 over 0, that is no solution. That's impossible. You can't have 0 in the denominator. That's no solution. That's impossible to do. If you have negative 7 over 0, that's no solution. Let's take a look on our calculator. Let's do 0 divided by 9. That equals 0. Let's do let's do 0 divided by -35. That equals 0. So 0 divided by anything always equals 0. But what if we have 8 divided by 0? You see that we get not a number. That means no solution. So we can never have 0 in the denominator. Whenever 0 is in the denominator, it is no solution. And I guess some people ask, hey, Mr. Mack, what's 0 over 0? That is equal to no solution. You cannot have 0 in the denominator. Good. All right, number 27, we got 3 more problems. Ooh, look at this going on here. So we can do, I didn't do this. You can do 2 options, excuse me. You can do 2 options. We'll try. We'll do first one. Let's do this. Let's copy it too. Copy, paste. So option 1 and option 2. Option 1, typically we have done the distribution. We cannot combine those because that would be addition and subtraction. And we have multiplication here. So we have to distribute this -3 into the parentheses. So this equals 125 equals 8 minus 3 times 7n minus 3 times 3. We're distributing the -3. How did we know it was negative? Because there was a negative outside of it. So 125 equals 8 Negative 3 times 7n is negative 21n. Negative 3 times 3 is negative 9. Now, since we have constants on the same side of the equal sign, let's simplify that. We can't simplify any other ones because they have to be on the same side. So 125 equals positive 8, negative 9 is negative 1. And now this is a two-step problem. Get rid of what's being added and subtracted to the variable. Divide by negative 21. And, okay. That one's not necessarily, we got 126 over negative 21. Let's reduce that equals n. So let's reduce that fraction. So 126 over negative 21, what goes into 126 and 21? Well, 1 plus 2 is 3 plus 6 is 9, so I know 3 goes into that and 3 goes into 21. And those are called divisibility rules that you learned last year in 7th grade and also in 6th grade. So 3 goes into 126 42 times, 3 goes into negative 21 negative 7 times, and now 42 over negative 7 is negative 6. I know that 42 over 7 goes in 6 times, and a positive divided by a negative is negative 6. So my answer is going to be negative 6. Let's do option 2. That's good. I don't think I put that in the notes. So there are two things happening to the parentheses. I can't get into the parentheses until I get the stuff outside of it, get rid of it. Students will oftentimes do 8 minus 3. We cannot do this addition and subtraction. So I need to get rid of things being added and subtracted first. So I'm going to subtract 8. 8 from 125 gives me 117. I think that is. Negative 3 times the quantity 7n plus 3. Right? 7 is 14, 15. Yeah. And now we're going to get rid of that negative 3 multiplying by dividing by negative 3. 117 is the most common wrong prime number. Students think that 117 is prime. 117 is not prime. 1 plus 1 is 2 plus 7 is 9. So I know that 3 goes into 117. So 3 goes into 11 3 times with 2 left over is 9. A positive divided by a negative is negative. And now we've gotten rid of those parentheses. Now we can subtract 3. That gives me negative 42. Divide by 7. Negative 6 equals n. That would be the high school and college way of doing that problem. Number 28. We again can distribute 7 times x plus 7 times negative 8 equals negative 91. 7x minus 72 equals 72. 56, Mr. Mac. Minus 91. My brain talked to me. I said, I don't think it's 72. That doesn't make sense. I sort of had a pause. I didn't feel good about it. That's why I stopped and checked my work. More often, you'll know when you're making a mistake. You got to listen to your intuitions. Add 56, add 56, 7x equals, the signs are different. You have a negative 91 and positive 56. So we're going to take the smaller from the larger. 6 goes in 5. 5 goes in 8 3 times. We have more negatives than positives, so it's negative 35. Divide by 7. X equals negative 5. And option 2, the high school, let's divide by 7. X minus 8. 7 goes into 91. 7 goes into 9 once with 2 left over. So that's negative 1. 7 goes into 21 3 times. Add 8. And we're left with x equals negative 5. And last but not least, we're going to distribute using option 1. 2 times 3 is 6, minus 12v equals negative 90. Let's get rid of the 6. Negative 6, negative 12v equals negative 96. Divide by negative 12, divide by negative 12. V equals positive, and 1296, I think it's 8, yeah. 2 times 8 is 16, carry the 1. Good, V equals 8. Positive 8 is a solution. Now we can use option 2, the high school way. 3 minus 6v equals negative 45. 90 divided by 2 is 45. And a negative divided by a positive is positive. Let's get rid of that positive 3 by subtracting 3. That gives me negative 48. Divide by negative 6. 6 times 8 is 48. Good. All right. Here are the solutions. Lots of B's in there. Lots of B's and D's. Lots of answers. So those are your solutions. Hope that helps, and good luck.